We're the Wildlanders Off-Grid, a family homesteading in remote, rural Portugal. We left our city lives behind to connect with nature and live a more sustainable lifestyle. From growing our own food to learning how to build our own tiny house. Follow our journey as we build a new life for ourselves.
Welcome back to the Wildlands.
And tonight we're back at our tiny house, our off-grid cabin in central Portugal that we're building for our daughter Rosie. And the cabin is nearly finished, isn't it?
So nearly finished. And in tonight's episode, there's quite a lot of stuff going on, isn't there?
There is, yeah. So we've got lots of the end of any build, the niggles, the finishing bits, the windows and all kinds of other jobs. But specifically tonight,
there's a new window ledge.
There is a new window ledge, and that means that the first of the big windows is fully fitted.
We go upstairs, there's insulation and plasterboarding happening.
That's very exciting. So can we get the upstairs fully plastered before the end of this episode?
And we go visit the chickens for a couple of things too.
We do indeed. I won't spoil the secret chicken announcement, but we do have something quite amusing and very cute to show you on the chickens a bit later.
So it's a jam-packed episode, really.
It is. So what's first?
Let's go get that windowsill in.
I think so, yeah. So this is the largest of the windows, and today we're going to fit that. We decided after last week where we made a small cork oak windowsill for one of the front windows that we're going to put windowsills like that on all of our windows. So today, first of all, I've got to make the windowsill and make sure it fits in the gap that we have.
I get to sand it.
And then there's lots of sanding, which you can see here from Missy. And that's still not finished because there's a lot of work to get out the little ridges that are on the top. We want to get it super flat before it's oiled. And then here you can see the surround that goes round that I've screwed in. Now at a later date we want to remove these, which is why the screw holes have not been filled, and then we're going to take them off before decorating. And then it means that when we decorate we can fold
the wallpaper around the edges.
Yeah, and then put the wood back on and it will all be neat and tidy and sealed. And then at that point these light pine edgings we will stain in Rosie's chosen colour, which I have here, which is a sort of cherry red varnish. And then the beautiful windowsill that's now the right shape and is screwed in situ but still needs more sanding will be oiled.
That's that job
and
done.
That's
then.
Another one ticked off the list. So now we know what we're doing on the second of the bigger windows on the other side of the cabin, which we'll do probably next week or the week after. But the most exciting thing in the cabin today, what is that?
Going upstairs.
We're going upstairs to plaster, which is the last of the big jobs. As you can see, it's quite a difficult space to plaster because it's obviously super sharp. It's a very high apex. A lot of people said the height of the cabin, it was a bit squashed and a bit high, but the main reason for that was that Rosie likes to do lots of bouncing around when she's listening to music, which she does upstairs.
So we wanted head height.
So she wanted a lot of head height, which is quite tall. So we think it looks chocolate box. Anyway, I digress.
Before the plastering, I go in there and I've never put an insulation in before, and because I'm working with an angle like this, the insulation is actually wanting to fall back on you.
Right, yep.
So I came up with a little fix with some wire and a stapler, and it worked really well.
It worked super well. see Missy's putting up lots and lots of insulation. She got the short straw. In fact, you were enjoying it, weren't you? Because I think I was editing last week when you started the insulation.
Yep.
And the wire trick, that was genius.
It was quite fun because quite often I don't get to do some of the jobs by myself, or I don't get to do the technical things because I don't have the skills, and it makes more sense to allow Dom to do them because he has the skills. So something like insulation, I thought, well, I'll give it a crack, and I did it, and I'm all happy with that.
Yeah, it looked great, and it's nice and thick, and it's worth pointing out that on the right side of the cabin, or the front of the cabin, you did double insulation, didn't you?
Yes, thick.
And why was that?
Well, the sun comes up over there and it moves
clever,
over there,
yep.
so that side of the roof gets loads of sun and that side gets barely any at all. So I thought better to have thick insulation.
Yeah. And that's why it was mainly insulated so thickly, and the roof was for the sun.
Yeah, and to keep the warmth in winter.
Yeah.
After the insulation went in, the next job was putting the plasterboards up, of course.
And that was a long job, and we had our friend Paul helping us again. And that was basically about the cutting of the boards to fit in the appropriate spaces. So the sides, despite the tight angle, were quite easy because we didn't have to cut the board at all, did we?
No.
We used a full board and then a section at the top.
So we had Paul down here lifting them up in through the door, and then we would grab them in through the door and then put them up, and then I kind of had to wedge myself against them so that they didn't fall flat while you went through and put all the screws in the joists. That was relatively easy, not so bad.
And so we basically replicated that on both sides and finished both of the sides off.
The trouble was, some of the joists, some of them were fine, and then other ones, the join of the plasterboard wasn't over a joist.
Yeah, I forgot to mention.
So we had to come up with a clever little thing to patch that up, didn't we?
We did, yeah. And what we were thinking is because the walls are like that, it's obviously more likely that Rosie and or us or her friends are going to lean on the wall or catch the wall or bump into the wall. So as Missy said, where the two boards or many of the boards butted up and they weren't over a joist and it wobbled, we had to come up with a method so that we could then plaster it and it wasn't going to be wobbly when you leant on it. So we screwed slithers of OSB behind it and glued it on as well. The idea being that obviously the two boards are then held rigid because they've got a flat piece of OSB behind them, meaning then we can put the tape on, plaster it, and hopefully it's less likely to crack.
Much less likely to wobble.
Yeah, so that took a little while, but it was an ingenious fix which Paul came up with, I have to be honest.
Yeah, it was worth doing.
So we then had to take some of the boards down so that we could do that as our fix, and then we finished the two sides.
Yep.
Coming off. Let me know when you're ready. The joy of the triangles on the end.
It wasn't so hard. No. It was just measuring, you just had to measure the height and the width, which would then tell you what angle the triangle shape should be. Trouble over the insulation, and it's done now, so it's ready for the like you say, putting the tape on the joins and then covering it with plaster and then sanding that down and then wallpapering, and then it's finished. And
at this end we had to
cut the window out.
And then once we'd cut the window out, it was a bit of a mess, so we decided that we're going to make a nice frame around it.
Yeah.
Because it's a slightly different window arrangement to downstairs, a little small grey window. So plastering looks great, doesn't it? All finished?
Yes, very happy with that. And then once we've done the plastering and the wallpapering and so on, we're going to put some laminate flooring down up here. Yep. And that will basically finish off the room then, and then it'll just be paint, furniture.
Job's a good one.
Job's a good one.
Yeah.
Usable.
So just to remind you, job's still to go. is these 2 windows behind us. They need properly fitting. I have mentioned it a couple of times before, but they're just basically held in with a couple of spare bits of wood. Not a big job, much the same as the other window, but a little bit quicker. We've got some nice beading that can go around the edge. The one other big window that we mentioned earlier, that's got to be done, and the little window upstairs. And then it's
all of the nice blonde light looking wood, all of the roof joists, the ceiling joists and the stairs and the surrounds, like you mentioned when we talked about the window, they've all got to be stained because Rosie's chosen, well, it's a varnish, isn't it?
It's a varnish.
It's a varnish that is sort of cherry coloured, cherry wood. So that's all got to be done.
And then it's just on to furniture after that. Cupboards, shelves, bed, all of which I'm making myself to Rosie's spec.
So that's the cabin, very much approaching completion. We've set ourselves a date of the end of March. We're going to try to have it basically done, cleared out, ready for Rosie to move in. It might not have furniture in it by the end of March, but it will be ready for her to start moving things in and using the space.
And our regular viewers will know that we've said that before. We've always said this is when we hope to be finished. Originally, the last window was the previous Christmas, and then it was the Christmas that we've just had. And the reason for that is because basically we've been a bit skint and our income has been very up and down and a lot lower, so therefore we've had less money available. So we had a massive amount of time where we needed lots of stuff for the cabin, but we didn't have the funds to buy it.
Yeah, right.
But
it wouldn't have taken us 2 years.
No, so we have most of the wood to make the furniture, not all of it, so I can make the framework of the furniture downstairs, but then we need to get doors.
Yep.
But we're there, so I think
close.
March is reasonable, and that's our goal, because in April we're on to
plants
and plant nursery and growing and watering and other things, so we've got a finite window.
I'm going to try and sneak in another little mini project in between plants. I want to do project pool. We had a little pool for cooling off in the summer last year, and I want to get a slightly bigger one, but I also want to make a nice decking area and a couple of deck chairs and maybe some shade and make it really nice. We can squeeze that in?
I think so. I mean, I think that's a must, because it gets so ridiculously hot here in the summer. I mean, a lot of it is like hot, but you can carry on working and functioning normally, but in August it's usually 40 plus every day, with maybe a week or two where it's even 44, 45, 46. Can't do anything. So we were spending all that time in the late afternoon when it's that temperature in the pool. So we've got to have a bigger pool, haven't we?
We'll try and squeeze
project
that in.
pool, we'll try and squeeze in.
So that's all the cabin stuff done, and projects and so on. But also this week we had a little chicken emergency, didn't we?
We did, yeah. We realised that again, not sure if it was caused by an attempted break-in of the chicken area or whether it was the chicken proofing wire rotting because it's buried underground. So we had quite a large section in several places where the fence was actually completely corroded.
There was just a hole you could stick your hand under the fence to the outside.
A fox could have almost just lifted it up and just walked straight in. So we had to fix that as an emergency quickly because we couldn't leave it unattended. So we had to stop the cabin.
Which is why there wasn't a video last week, because that delayed us a little bit, and then we just hadn't filmed enough for a video last week.
That is true, yeah.
That's why this week's a bumper.
Yeah. So we fixed that, and it was basically cutting pieces of chicken wire, stapling them on the top, digging the trenches, as you can see here, and then digging it back in, covering it over. And we had the problem with we had the chickens to work around who were fascinated by the digging. They kept getting in the way. They were looking at bugs. They found worms and other critters.
And whenever you just buried a bit of wire, they're like, oh, and then they're digging it back out.
We had to cover it back over with bits of wood and some stones so that they didn't dig it back up.
And while we're in the chickens, we should probably present Bluetooth.
So Bluetooth is getting, how should I put it politely, over affectionate with multiple roosters and has a problem with her feathers. So she basically was getting cold.
Yes, yeah, they'd pulled out all of the feathers on her back with their claws and their feet because they're jumping on her so much. Poor little girl. So I did a bit of research and I came up with chicken saddles. And I went on Etsy and I found one. There isn't anybody in Portugal doing them, so I had to go to Germany to buy a chicken saddle. And I thought Bluetooth's a fancy kind of girl, so I got her a leopard spot chicken saddle, and it's just elastic that pops under the wings, and then the saddle goes on the back. Yes, she's a rock chick. And so far, so good.
Yeah.
She was a bit weird about it the first time. It must have felt a bit odd having elastic under the old wings, but yeah, it seems to be doing the job.
Yep.
I'm hoping it'll allow her feathers to grow in underneath the saddle, and then maybe we can take it off for a bit, certainly in the summer. And it's also keeping her a bit warm.
Yeah.
Like with no feathers, she's got to be chilly.
And the main problem is that currently we have 3 roosters left over from our hatching in the summer, and we've been trying to rehome 2 of them, so obviously keeping our resident rooster, Mr. Flapjack. So the good news is we have rehomed one, and
he's off next weekend.
He's off next weekend. So if you're in Portugal, or central Portugal I guess, and you would like a lovely friendly pet rooster to look after your hens and be your friend, do drop us an email. Get in touch. And that is the end of another week, is it not?
It is, yeah. Well, it's the end of 2 weeks.
It is the end of 2 weeks, yeah. So a very exciting week, getting all that work done on our off-grid crabbing. It's
been a huge jump. It's gone from the upstairs being really sort of empty and, OSB and not much happening, and all of a sudden the walls are up and ready for decorating almost. So that's great. So there again, another episode and another 2 weeks in this case on the Wildlands. Thank you very much for watching. And if you want to stay in touch with our building of off-grid buildings and other functions and facilities off-grid, then do subscribe to our little channel. And thanks very much to everybody that supported us on Buy Me a Coffee this week. Rosie's so thrilled to have gotten lamps and colour changing lights for her cabin and a fluffy rug and stuff like that, and appreciated the drinks as well. Thank you very much, everybody there. Thanks so much for joining us here on the Wildlands and seeing what we've been up to this week. It's been busy. It has been super busy, and we'll see you next week, hopefully. But certainly the week after. So thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon.
Bye.
Bye.